Council for a financial status update second quarter review. This is a second part of a four-part series, so I appreciate you sticking with me. We're going to start tonight with the general fund. Things are looking pretty good in there. I have, blowing it. Okay, we have the fund summary down at the bottom there, which shows for the first half of the year where we are in terms of revenue and expenditures, and I also listed 2018 through 2020 as well, just comparatively. For revenues, we're at 56%, which is pretty typical for us. The bulk of that revenue is our real property tax revenue. We've collected about 93% to date, and that's our biggest revenue generator at the beginning of the year. I also wanted to highlight that we received a large health insurance reimbursement. We didn't get one last year, and how that's generated is how many claims we made against our insurance in the previous year. And in 2020, our claims dropped, so we got a $100,000 reimbursement in the general fund, which was $25,000 over what we anticipated, which helped our revenue so far. We had a few underperforming areas. Our building permits, our pool rec revenue, they're both down at this point in the year in comparison to historical. So we'll hope to see those improving as the year goes on. Additionally, we're about $31,000 less in interest revenue. Unfortunately, the interest rates have dropped substantially. We were getting about 2% in the previous year, and towards end of year, they dropped to less than 1%. So we're looking at about a high point of 0.04% of interest. So not getting the revenues we hope for at that point. Our expenditures, they are slightly higher than our historical activities. That's primarily due to a number of retirements that occurred during the year and some employees leaving, which results in a payout of accrued benefits. So we'll be monitoring that. We're not asking for a budget adjustment today since we're still well within our budget, but maybe third quarter we'll see where we're heading and may need to revisit that. Another point that I wanted to point out was our overtime. We're doing well on that regard. $55,000 less than we budgeted at this point in the year, and $30,000 less than historical. So doing good there. All right, now we'll move on to our utility funds. This is our water, sewer, stormwater. They're all doing, as expected. You'll see that the revenues aren't at 50%, and that's really, again, how we record our revenues. We bill after the fact, so the revenues that we generated in the first few months get put back into the previous year, into the year that the service was incurred. So we'll see large revenue coming in the second half of the year for those. Collections are still down. I don't want to get too far into that because it'll ruin the surprise on the next slide. So, but our water rate has increased. The council approved that increase back in December. So we're seeing a 3.4% increase in our water rate effective May 1st. So any billings after May 1st, we'll see that increase. In terms of expenses, they're lower than historical, and the primary driver of that is operating supplies, as well as a few positions that we haven't filled yet that are generating some savings there. Okay, this is our aged accounts, our outstanding balances that we have for our utilities. I have two charts here. Two tables that show the first quarter, which was presented back in April, and the second quarter as it lies June 30th. You'll see that in 2021, the columns there, we've had an increase of $100,000 in our outstanding balances overall. However, in terms of the number of accounts, we've seen a decrease of 40. So what's driving that increase actually is due to a number of industrial properties and commercial properties that have large balances that haven't made payment yet. So they're the result of that large increase. In terms of the number of accounts, what I presented here was those accounts that are at the lien threshold. That would be those that have an outstanding balance of $436 or more. So we've had a decrease in that since last quarter, and you'll see that our rental and residential have both decreased, with the increases in the commercial and industrial resulting in the balances there. Our solid waste fund, there's not a whole lot here to talk about. It's meeting expectations that we budgeted for. Our revenues and expenses are right in line as to where I expected them to be. Unfortunately, that being the case, we're not generating a surplus, so we, at this point, are still expecting to draw down on fund balance as the year goes on. But both revenue and expenses are right where they're anticipated to be. All right, now we're on to our parking fund. Both revenue and expenditures are down in that fund. Expenditures are down due to less hours that we require in the first half of the year from our parking enforcement officers as well as our garage attendants. And revenue has seen a drop mainly due to parking meter revenue and garage revenue. With less hours manning the garage, we're generating less revenue, and we also aren't collecting revenue from our gold meters. So we're still have things in place that are resulting in these declines. Our leases and our parking permits are right on track. They're back to normal levels. So we started issuing those, and revenue is right where they need to be for those. Additionally, we had a budgeted for a $20,000 subsidy from the county. Depending on the previous year and how it performed, the parking garage performed, the county would give us up to $20,000. We're waiting on our final audit figures to generate that, but it's looking like we wouldn't have a substantial loss in the operating for the garage to get that. But we'll know once we get those final numbers. Okay. Any questions?
When is I hate to ask this question, when is our garbage renewal for looking at?
We have one more year.
Okay.
So we will be looking at that in early next year, end of this year.